Well, greetings, Gran Turismo enjoyers, and I have a real treat for you guys. Yeah, I'm going to build a car that doesn't actually exist in real life and I just made up. And what's the basis for it, you might ask? Well, it's the 1989 Nissan Fairlady Z twin-turbo two-seater. And the engine swap that we're going to use is the LS7 Rampage V8. Even though it's supposed to have a different engine in the description, but in the game it has the LS7 Rampage. But first, let's wide body it, since it's supposed to have a wide body. Yeah, you want to get the LS7 Rampage. Yeah, throw it into the car, man. Yeah, the GT Auto guys always like to do a good job, especially when it comes to drinking oil. Yeah. Don't ask me how they survive drinking oil in the first place, since it is hazardous to drink, but that's the way of the GT Auto guys. Anyways. Then you would want to get the Pokai Customs GRB01 rims. Alright, wide offset, but have the rim width as standard. Because, well, it's supposed to have factory tire width, since it is sort of based on the M30Z. Well, it's pretty much the M30Z on steroids. And then after that, whoops, we forgot to add the wing. Sorry about that. Forgot to add aero parts, yeah. Before you go into the tuning parts, you have to add aero parts, and the link to the style will be in the description if you want to try it out yourself. Yeah. Yeah. Has a rear wing. So yeah, we got our aero parts installed and we're almost ready. Yeah, after you've got your aero parts installed, you want to head on over to the tuning shop. And you want to buy the following for it. Stage 1 weight reduction. Nothing in club sports. Racing camshaft. Oh, not camshaft, crankshaft, sorry about that. Yeah, you want to get the racing crankshaft. High-end torque supercharger. Racing exhaust manifold. Racing intercooler. racing air filter, racing muffler, engine balance tuning, titanium conrods, and racing suspension, and for that classic dog box feel, you want to get a fully customizable manual transmission. You want to get, well, slotted brakes, get slide drilled or carbon ceramic. There's not much difference aside from how the brakes look like. It's basically there for cosmetic purposes. And increased body rigidity. And sports hard tires. Since the car is supposed to both oversteer and understeer. So yeah, those are the parts that you need to replicate this build. But anyways, let's see what the car looks like. Well, there it is. In case you're wondering about the story behind this vehicle, at least in my headcanon, well, think of it as Yoshizaku Tomita and Koenig attempt to take on the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette. My main inspiration for this build is HSG Automotive's V8 powered 3000 GT. And just like that car, this car also doesn't exist in real life. You see, in my headcanon, this car was made as a direct answer to the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette, but it took Yoshizaku Tomita and KoenigKaira 4 years to develop because of the M30Z having to be released in line with the M70X. And they took a ordinary Ford 351 Windsor V8 and basically bored it up to 7 liters and also redone it with a billet block. But they had help from Saleen, as Saleen is an expert on Ford engines. The reason why they chose a Ford Windsor V8 for this car is so that it can be known as a Chevy killer or a Corvette killer. And they wanted to use a competitor's engine. And the best option, well, the second best option was the Ford 351 Windsor. And this is basically what it would be like if Yoshizaku Tomita and KoenigKaira were made aware of the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette's existence. Yeah, they see the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette and are like, yeah, we can one-up you guys. And no, I'm not talking about the golf company Callaway, the company that makes golf balls. I'm talking about the company that tunes Chevys and makes them really fast. That Callaway. And the most amazing part about this is that I also made an Americana version. Yeah, this is a US spec version called the Saleen S1050 GTX. It has racing stripes on it because, well, it's supposed to invoke that Shelby feel. So yeah, according to my headcanon, Saleen would take what they've learned about the M70X, aka the S1050 GTX in North America, and put it towards good use with the Saleen S7. So yeah, this car would eventually spearhead the development of the Saleen S7 many years later. And only 200 M70Xs were made, by the way. 150 of the US spec version called the Saleen S1050 GTX were made. So yeah, it is a really rare car according to my headcanon. I gotta hand it to you. It was a fun car to do. And yes, it's faster than the Demon swapped 3000 GT, aka GTO. I actually tested it myself. Here's the setup if you're interested. This is a setup that I made on my own. I want this car to invoke a 90s supercar feel, so I made it as slippery as possible. Because it's supposed to be hard to control. Because it's a really fast car to speed build. And I also got a racing clutch for it. Yeah, I got a racing clutch for both builds. And here's the parts you need for it. Yeah, so engine balance tuning, titanium conrods, racing crankshaft, stage 1 weight reduction, body rigidity, slotted or drilled racing brakes, depending on which one you prefer, racing clutch, and the LS7 Rampage engine swap. So those are the parts you need in order to build it yourself. Oh, and make sure you get racing intercooler and high-end torque supercharger. So yeah, let's test it. Some say that it is believed that she actually owns one of these rare unicorns in her garage, but all we know is she's called Bobby Fletcher. And here we go. Unlike HSG Automotive's V8 powered GTO, aka the Koenig GT-8, this car is rear-wheel drive and likes to spin its wheels a lot due to how much horsepower it has. And yeah, there's a lot of oversteer. In fact, I had to redo my setup for this car to be stable, as my test driver complained about it. But here she goes into the straights. It's really fast in the straightaways, because it has a lot of horsepower. Yeah, try not to overshoot it, because this car is really tricky to drive. Yeah, there is a lot of oversteer. In fact, I was messing around with the settings. I added some downforce to keep it stable and added rear ballast. Yeah, there she goes. Keep in mind, it is said that she actually owns one of these rare unicorns in her garage. Yeah, she goes in the corner. She's doing a good job at it. And I could have picked the Skyline, but I wanted to pick the Fairlady Z because that car was sold in North America, and I wanted to make a US DM version of it. The Skyline wasn't sold in North America. So yeah, that's why I picked the Fairlady Z over the Skyline. Yeah, as you can see, there's oversteer. And she actually took the time to practice laps inside this rare 90s unicorn. Yeah, it's a good thing I added ballast. This car is a real beast. Imagine if TommyKaira actually made something like this in real life. It would be insane. Yeah, into the chicane. Into the final corner. Trying not to oversteer because this car has a lot of oversteering power. Look how much power it has. And across the line! Let's see where this puts this ultra rare twin charged beast on the leaderboard. And it has a time of 2:17.685. Yeah, I could have done a faster lap, but it's running with sports hards, and this car likes to spin its wheels a lot because of how much horsepower it is. Like I said, unlike the Koenig GT-8 that HSG Automotive has, this car is rear-wheel drive and is much harder to control. And because it's rear-wheel drive, it likes to spin its wheels like there's no tomorrow because of how much horsepower it has. But hey, at least it's pretty fast, and it also has a dog box transmission, but you have to keep in mind, not many cars in the 90s had dual clutch transmissions. Yeah, sequential gearboxes and electronic shifting was only a thing in Formula 1 in the 90s. So yeah, most car companies still use dog boxes in that era. But anyways, let's see how fast it is in the straights. So yeah, it was really difficult to control. I mean, with the setup that I used, it was near impossible to drive. So what I did was basically increase the downforce and bought an LST. I didn't want to buy an LST for this one, but seeing that it doesn't, well, it can't function without one, yeah, it's gonna need one so it could be easier to control. But anyways, here's the setup that I used. Yeah, feel free to copy these settings if you want. I'd highly recommend you to pause the video so you can copy these settings yourself. And here are the parts. Engine balance, and here are the parts. Engine balance tuning, titanium connecting rods and pistons, racing crankshaft, stage 1 rate reduction, increased by rigidity, racing brakes, it doesn't matter which ones you get, it's purely cosmetic, racing brake pads, racing intercooler, high-end torque supercharger, racing muffler, racing air filter, racing exhaust manifold, car and propeller shaft, fully customizable LSD so that you can make it easier to control, and the cherry on top, a fully customizable manual transmission. And the reason why I went with the manual instead of the racing transmission is to give it that nostalgic dog box feel. So yeah, I want this car to invoke 90s technology. Keep in mind, it's what they had at the time. Yeah, no, a dog box transmission is not as fast as a dual clutch, but dual clutch transmissions weren't widely adopted in the 90s. You only saw them in Formula 1 at the time. Nowadays, they're all over the place, but back then, most automakers still use dog box transmissions. It's what they had. It's why it didn't have as good of a lap time as I would hope, because it is really what they had in the 90s. It's 90s technology. Yeah, 90s technology has limitations. But anyways, let's test its top speed. And since there's no machine test, I'm going to do it in the time trial and Special Stage Redux. Please add machine test Polyphony Digital. I want to be able to benchmark my builds. And yes, I actually made a 720 pp setup for Clubman Cup Plus at Special Stage Redux, and I'm going to do that race later. I'll link you the race in the description itself when it's uploaded. So yeah. It has a Ford Windsor V8 with billet blocks. And as you can tell, its top speed is right up there with the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette because it's supposed to be benchmarked against the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette. This is what would be like if Yoshizaku Tomita and Koenig were made aware of the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette's existence. They would make something as crazy as this. Yeah, I know, like, TommyKaira is usually a more reserved car company, but I think they would make this if they knew about the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette. Although, it is still a rare unicorn, but it doesn't actually exist in real life. This is just a what-if scenario. I'm actually planning on making more of these fictional builds. And I'm going to have more of these what-if scenarios. Yeah, so it's basically, what if Yoshizaku Tomita and Koenig, the heads of TommyKaira, knew about the Callaway Sledgehammer? Yeah, 258. It's almost up there. Yeah. Due to drag, I can't get it any higher than 259. But it's still my fastest build that I've ever had in terms of top speed. But the hardest part is 0 to 60 times. That's going to be the more difficult part, testing out the 0 to 60. And I have to get out a timer for me to do that. Oops. See, I told you it was difficult, because I have to have one hand on my controller and the other hand on my MacBook Pro to do the testing. Here we go. Zero to 60 in 5.23 seconds. Yeah, I know, it's not as fast as you would expect, but 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds was up there with some of the more high-end cars. I'm actually going to look up the Callaway Sledgehammer Corvette 0 to 60, just as a benchmark. And no, it's not the Callaway from, well, it's not the golf ball Callaway company. It's the Callaway that I think of. The Callaway that makes really fast Chevys and tuned Corvettes. So yeah, it is faster than the Callaway Sledgehammer. But its 0 to 60 time kind of suffers due to the excessive wheel spin and the fact I'm using sports hards. I'm sure you can get it, well, get a faster 0 to 60 time with slicks, but I wanted sports hards. Yeah. 0 to 60 was still pretty fast in the 90s. It's crazy how far things have come since then. But anyways, the link to the livery for this fictional high-performance build is in the description, and you know the drill by now. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell just in case you haven't already done so. Catch you guys next time, and peace out.